Hey, Brandon here with Trophy Bucks of Iowa at Raccoon Valley Taxidermy with Matt Welsh. It's that time of the year, rut's in full swing, and gun season's around the corner, and there's going to be an influx of deer being harvested and brought to taxidermy shops. So we thought it would be a good idea to show a kind of a tutorial of how to properly cape a deer once you get it and bring it to the taxidermist. So Matt's going to do a step-by-step, and hopefully this helps you guys that aren't aware of how to properly cape a deer, so it streamlines the process of once you get to the taxidermist.
Yep, sure. Thanks. So. There's a few problem areas that I see when doing this that people aren't aware of, and none of it's intentional, obviously, but it will either require some additional sewing or form alteration just because we're missing some hide. The biggest area that I see where people make mistakes is within the front legs and the brisket area. Rarely do I see people actually cut the cape too short, because I feel like everyone knows that you need a lot of hide back here to cover your shoulder mount, but the front leg area and this chest, brisket, armpit area is the most problematic area, and I think that's where a lot of people get confused. So that's a big area I'm going to focus on. But again, I'll kind of get started here and show you the cuts to make, and then it's just skinning down. But on the back of the leg on this deer, so this knee right here where this bends, that's where I make the cut. This area on the front leg is where I get shorted on hide more often than not. Don't cut it up here. We want to be down here because that form actually shows down to about here, and then you need enough to wrap around the back of the form. So come down to this first knee and you will have plenty for your standard shoulder mount. So I just cut around all the way around the legs at that knee, okay? And just remember, if the hide's not there, I can't use it. If there's too much, I can cut it off and toss it. So, and then the next cut you're going to want to make where this brown hair and white hair meet up the back of the leg. That's the incision you're going to want to make, okay? And notice my knife blade, I cut in from the underside and cut up. If you do that, the hide will separate out and you won't cut any hair. Don't come at it like this, because then you're going to cut the hairs off, and that is potential for more repair. Just right up that line where the brown and the white hair meet. And most people do pretty good to this point. This is where people get confused and they feel like they want to turn in and cut through this armpit because they think if they cut up here, it's going to show. But in all reality, the best thing to do is come right up here along the edge of that armpit. Do not cut through the armpit, and straight up to where this incision is going to be. Okay? Again, same thing. White, where the white and the brown hair meet, straight up. Straight up to where the incision around the chest is going to be. Okay, you see that? That's where your cut needs to be. And then, just another side note, when you're gutting the animal, I just tell people, when you hit the sternum, just stop. And I know it makes it a little more of a pain when you're gutting it, because you have to get your arms clear up in here to field dress the animal. But if you split it way up into here, you know, that's more work and potentially more charges from your taxidermist to fix unnecessary cuts. So again, make sure we got plenty, and then we're just going to cut directly around the chest, all the way around. Okay, all the incisions are made now that we have to do for a proper cape job for a shoulder mount on a whitetail. And again, you can do this same method on a pronghorn, on an elk, any big game animal that you're going to mount. You do this method. I try not to split them clear up the back on an elk or an antelope or something. Mule deer, if you're out west and you don't have access to hang them and you have to do it in the field, then by all means split it the whole way. It's just that much more sewing. But again, if you're in the field, you know, if you're in the mountains or something and have an elk and obviously you can't hang it, then you're going to have to skin one side and then do everything on that side and then flip it over and do the other side. So that's totally acceptable. But again, on a deer, if you can hang it, don't split it all the way up the back. That's just more sewing for your taxidermist. So now it's just a matter of skinning the hide off the animal. In this area is the chest area and armpit area. The tissue is a little bit softer, and there's kind of some fat, and it's a lot harder to kind of distinguish from the hide to the meat and tissue of the animal. So that this is an area where a lot of people cut holes, and rightfully so. But this area is a bit more of a challenge than the rest of it. But that's how the animal is made.
I know on the holes I've put in capes that they got some good sewing skills.
Yeah, I've become a pretty good seamstress over the years. But again, anything, you know, and it is our job as taxidermists to repair things like that. But at the same time, you know, you're talking, anytime you have to repair something or do something like that, it takes more time. And if you're mounting 100 deer a year, you know, and you got to make repairs on all those capes, it just delays the turnaround time, you know, on a mount. So all that stuff adds up, and will help out your taxidermist to provide a quicker and more superior product. And like I said, I've got plenty of cape here for any standard shoulder mount or wall pedestal type mount. And you know, like I said, if it's not there, obviously we can't use it. But if there's too much, that's always better, because we can cut off what we don't need. And just remember this front leg area and the proper cuts to make here. And that'll save taxidermists a lot of problems. And another tip, and I know like in warm weather, you know, a lot of people, they want to get it on ice, or they want to get it cooled down right away, which is correct. However, I would not recommend, you know, I've seen where people will, you know, they'll run to Casey's and grab a bag of ice and put it down in the chest cavity as it's hanging. And that's fine, you cool that chest cavity, but all that ice melts and you have water that's pooled in the head of this animal, and it will actually absorb into the hide, and the hide will swell, and it makes a really, really bad mess. It can cause some issues. And you know, I've seen where people they'll shoot an animal and they'll pack it in ice in a cooler. Again, that's fine, and if you do that, wherever you're storing that cooler, have it on an incline and leave the plug open, because you don't want that animal sitting in water. Bacteria needs moisture to grow and do its thing. So if you can drain that water away from that hide, that's going to be best. So we're getting down in front of the shoulder area here, and any of you that have skinned very many deer fully understand that skinning down here on the neck gets a lot tougher, right? And that's fine, but you know, I would just say skin it as far down as you're comfortable, and you're just going to want to leave behind the head I like to see, 4 to 6 inches of that neck kept in there, just because after I skin it off the head, and I take carcass measurements on that section of neck that you leave in there for to order your form. If you don't leave that in there, it's not that critical. We can measure the hide and do all that, but the carcass is ultimately what you take measurements on for the form, for the neck size. You don't measure outside, over top of the hide, over the hair. It's all done based off the carcass. And if you have questions, whoever you're using for a taxidermist, just call them, pick their brain, see how they want it. We all do things a little bit different, but if you cape a deer like this, I don't know any taxidermist that would have any issues with the way I'm showing you right here.
Now, do you accept whole deer? Do you get people that bring their entire deer here and then you do this process for them?
Yeah, that kind of what I do. I went back and forth on this from the business standpoint. Do I charge for this part? Do I not? And I kind of come to the conclusion, if you're going to leave it with me, and every taxidermist may be different on this, but this is just my thing. If you're going to leave it with me and have me do the mount, I'm not going to charge you for this part. I do have, every year I've got a handful of non-resident guys that look me up, and they've got a local taxidermist wherever they're from that they want to do their mount. So they just want me to do all this part so they can get it back home. And that's fine, and then I do charge for that. But again, every taxidermist is kind of going to be different and set things up their own way. So you just have to communicate with them and see. But I know a lot of meat lockers will charge you for this process. So it's just a matter of communicating with the people you're going to work with and doing things how they want you to do it. So, okay, so we're getting down here on this animal on the neck to where the jawbone, the back of the jawbone's about right here. So I'm almost all the way to the head or the back of the ears, and this neck's going to start tapering and getting skinnier back behind these ears here. And this is the point where you can cut through the meat into the vertebrae, and so I like to leave the jawbones roughly right here, the back of it. I like to leave about this much, and you can get your carcass measurements for your form off of that. So I just cut through the meat. Okay, I've made that cut all the way around to the bone of the spine. And then at this point, however you want to remove that head, but that's when you would do that, is at this point now. So we've now removed the head from the carcass, and this is what you end up with. And this is how probably 90% of my deer come into me, is like this, with the head still inside in that portion of the neck. And then you can see this chest area. Here's the front legs, chest, and there's your cape. Now at this point, if you can't get it to the taxidermist right away, I would say just get this situated to where you can get it rolled up, folded up, something like that. Put it in a black or just a garbage bag, and then get it in your freezer. And then that'll buy you some time until you can get to the taxidermist.